Howdy, Dwight here with CPAP4Me. Wanted to talk to you today about choosing the right mask for you. This is actually the most critical part of getting used to CPAP because this is the part where the interface with you and the machine actually happens. This is where the rubber meets the road. So it's something where we want to have a very good fit. When we have a great fit, we normally have great CPAP compliance. The patients that have a good fit normally find that the machine is very, very easy to use. Whereas patients that have a poor fit and are poorly fit by the lab that they worked at, or if they've never been to a lab and they just ordered stuff off the internet, they have a really hard time getting a perfect fit, and CPAP ends up being not for them. It's really not for them because they didn't really get a good fit. When we think about the amount of pressure that a CPAP is using, it's really a very small amount of pressure. Now it feels like a lot because we're interacting with the respiratory system, but when you actually disconnect it and put it against your skin, you'll notice that it's actually not a whole lot of pressure. Now, there are several different types of CPAP masks, and they all fall into three main categories. The first main category being the nasal pillow mask that has the smallest area that it seals across. The next is the nasal mask, and it's a mask that actually goes over the nose and around the nose. That has the middle kind of in terms of territory that we're sealing across. And then we have the full face mask that covers both the nose and the mouth. With thinking of these three different types of masks, they all have their own unique value. And really the best one that we put on the most patients with the greatest success is the nasal pillow mask. And I want to talk to you a little bit about why that is. This is a cushion for a current on the market nasal CPAP mask. This is a nasal pillow mask. When we think about what we're sealing across a very small surface area. The other nice thing about a nasal mask is that a nasal mask interacts directly with the nose, which is the way that your body is designed to breathe. When we think about how we're breathing at night, we should be breathing with our nose. In many patients, I can actually cure their snoring just by getting them to breathe with only their nose. So in the lab, I'll kind of jokingly ask the patient, go ahead and make a snoring noise for me. And sometimes they kind of look at me like I'm crazy. Actually, most of the time they look at me like I'm crazy, but they finally do, and they... And okay, they made their snoring noise. Now I ask them to do it with their mouth closed, and they have a very difficult time snoring. Now some patients can still snore even with their mouth closed, but it's not all the time. So really, the majority of the time, the patient is unable to snore once their mouth is closed. If we can apply an appropriate amount of pressure to keep your nasal airway open, and especially the pharyngeal area of your throat, then you will not open your mouth at night. This solves snoring problems, it solves dry mouth issues because you're not breathing through your mouth, which isn't designed to be breathed through all the time. It's just really the most beneficial way for us to breathe if we're physically capable of it. Now, there are patients who have difficulty because of things like a deviated septum, allergy issues, and we can even use CPAP to help with allergy issues sometimes, especially with proper humidification and pressure. But whenever we think about the most efficient and effective way to form a seal with a CPAP mask, the nasal pillow cushion is the way to go. Now, when we think about other types of masks, we think about over-the-nose masks. This is an over-the-nose mask made by ResMed, and the way that this mask seals is just like this. So we have a bigger surface area that we have to seal across, so it creates a little bit more opportunity for leak. Now, the way a CPAP machine interprets leak is that it's going to compensate for leak by increasing the pressure. Well, that can be a problem. So what we see is patients that go with masks that are improperly fit is that they will complain about the machine a lot. They'll say, oh, the pressure on this machine is too hard, I can't stand it, it's just too much pressure for me. Whereas we can take that exact same patient, put them on the exact same amount of pressure, get a great mask that seals on their nose perfectly, and they feel like it's just almost like normal breathing. It's something that's just really neat in the sleep lab to be able to do, to take a patient where they've never been able to use CPAP successfully because they've been poorly fit before, fit them with the perfect mask. All of a sudden, it's the greatest thing ever, and they sleep like a baby, and they send us more patients. We really love it. With this over-the-nose mask, we have a little bit bigger surface area to seal across. Still a great alternative because we're sealing across a smaller area than if we were to use a full face mask. But at the same time, bigger than the nasal cushion, the nasal pillow cushion. This particular mask forms a great seal. I've personally used it for multiple nights, and it works really well. With this particular mask, all we're looking at is width, but that's another issue with the nasal, with the over-the-nose masks. Some of them you're looking at height and width, some of them you're only looking at width, and knowing kind of the difference in those and which one is right for you. With the nasal pillow mask, going back to that one, we didn't talk about the different types of fit with it. There are actually different shapes to everybody's nostrils, and there's two really primary shapes. One is a very oblong shape, looks kind of very much like a racetrack, and then the second shape is more rounded. And there's certain brands that make pillows that are more oblong and certain brands that make pillows that are more rounded. And when we put these two brands together, you can very easily see the difference, and it's very easy for you to pick out the difference and say, hey, that's more what the shape of my nose looks like. So what we see a lot of times in labs is that patients will, or patients or technologists, sometimes technologists will just have a favorite mask that they put on every single patient, and that's a terrible idea. Or we'll have patients that are just buying their masks on their own off of the internet, and they just buy whatever is the cheapest or whatever they think will fit the best. But they haven't actually evaluated the shape of their nose versus the shape of what they're buying. So they're trying to take a square peg and put it in a round hole, or an oval shape and put it in a round hole, and that can be a problem. We can end up with an improper fit. That's one of the things that CPAP4Me is really designed around. We're designed around talking to you, having a video chat with you, and then figuring out what is the best fit for you based upon the shape of your nostrils, the size of your nose, the shape of your face. All these things matter, and we want to help you with these things. The third type of mask that we haven't talked about yet is the full face mask. Now, the full face mask is outstanding for patients that really are unable to breathe with their mouth, or patients that are on a ventilator type device. So if you're on an autoservo ventilator, if you're on some form of AVAPS unit, something that is really doing some ventilation there, then a full face mask is going to be a good alternative for you. If you're physically unable to breathe with your nose, maybe you got punched in the nose one too many times and now your nose is completely occluded, you can't breathe out of it, then a full face mask is really the only way to go. The full face mask is an outstanding mask, but it does have a few flaws to it. So the biggest flaw is that we have to seal across this lower jaw. Now, if you at home want to do a little experiment, all you have to do is push on your lower jaw just a little bit, and you can feel the back of your airway crowding. Now, we're going to try to put this across that lower jaw, and we got to form a seal there, and you'll notice that this pulls directly back on the jaw, which is going to cause a problem. That means we're going to need more pressure. So let's say that you had a sleep study at a sleep lab, and they put you on a nasal mask at the lab, and they said, okay, well, your pressure is 8. And then you go home and you get a full face mask. Well, now you need more pressure because that pressure of 8 was designed for a mask that's fitting only at your nostrils and applying pressure through the back of your airway. When we deal with this, we're now applying pressure to the chin, which pushes back and crowds the airway, which means that you need additional pressure to hold that airway open. So the full face mask, while it is a great alternative for patients that can't breathe with their nose, it is a little bit inferior. The second big disadvantage to a full face mask is we have a very large surface area to seal across compared to the nares of a nose or right around the nose. This causes opportunity for leak. Leak, once again, we get back to if a machine sees leak, it's going to interpret that as a problem and it's going to try to increase the pressure to compensate for it slightly. That can cause problems for the patient. So when we think about the best fitting method, we always want to start with a nasal pillow mask if you can. If you can't find a nasal pillow mask that works for you, then go with an over-the-nose mask. If you can't find an over-the-nose mask that works for you, the method of last resort is the full face mask. Love to have a conversation with you about CPAP, about your CPAP mask, and how we can help you find the mask that's the perfect fit for you. It'll change your life and it'll make you sleep a whole lot better. The way to get a hold of us is send us an email, orders@cpap4.me. That's orders@cpap4.me. Hope to hear from you soon.